Hello and welcome to the Stanion and Northants July 2021 Skyguide. Hopefully this will be the last one I'm putting on YouTube, as we're hoping to get the club up and running again on August the 6th. That's the first Friday of next month. So hopefully that all goes to plan and we can start doing that again. Okay, so we'll crack on and do the Skyguide as usual. I'll start off with the planets. So Mercury will be visible in the east-northeast before sunrise. It brightens from mag +1 to mag -1.6 by the end of the month. But it does head closer to the sun as the month progresses, so it will get a bit more challenging to spot, even though it is brightening. But on the morning of the 8th of July, on this slide here you can see about 4:30 in the morning, or maybe even a bit before if you've got a low horizon, you should be able to spot the innermost planet not far away from a very thin waning crescent moon. I think that moon must be about 4% lit, I think, at that particular time. So yeah, that will be a little handy tool to use to help you find Mercury, or maybe Mercury might help you find a very thin crescent moon. Either way, it will be an interesting morning to see those two objects side by side. And I'll move on now to Venus, which is an evening object, so it's low in the west-northwest after sunset, at mag -3.9. It is quite bright, but it might be a challenging spot as it's getting lower. As the sun sets, it too isn't that far behind it, so it might be a challenging spot, but given its brightness, you can normally spot Venus shining away quite nice in the twilight. And this image on the left of your screen I've put in because it is very close to a thin waxing crescent moon this time, on the 12th of July that is. So this is around about 10 to 10 I've set this at, so about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Have a look out there and you can see Venus very close to Mars, and then up to the left of both of those planets you should be able to see a very thin waxing crescent moon. Sorry Millie, you can't. I'll put a filter on this time. Millie's trying to join in. Can I say hello? Can I say hello? Alright, let me get on with this, Mills. Okay, so yeah, that's on the 13th of July. You have Venus, you have Mars, which is quite a lot dimmer than Venus, so Venus will probably outshine Mars. You won't be seeing that unless you're using a telescope or binoculars maybe. Then up to the left you'll see that very thin waxing crescent moon. But on the 13th, the following evening, Mars and Venus are very close together, so 30 arc minutes separates the two planets apparently in our sky. So if you look out about the same sort of time, 9:30 to 10 o'clock, you should be able to see those two. I didn't check if they were in the same field of view, but they may well be, certainly with a pair of binoculars. So that'll be an interesting spot as well. Moving on to Mars, I just spoke about Mars. It is mag 1.8, but it is a very small apparent diameter at the minute because it's getting further and further away from the Earth, so it makes it a bit more challenging to observe this month. But like I've just mentioned, Venus might be a good little pointer towards the red planet. So low in the west-northwest after sunset, as with Venus. Worth having a spot. And I think as the month progresses, it does get lower and closer to the sun, making it a bit more tricky to spot. But if you've got a low enough horizon, you stand a good chance. Moving on now to Jupiter. So now Jupiter's getting really well positioned now, and it is gaining height now year on year. It's going to get higher. I think its lowest was about 14 degrees a few years ago, but now it's rising, and when it's due south at its highest point, currently it's around about 25 degrees now, so it's getting easier to observe this gas giant in the early hours of the morning now. So mag 2.6 this month, so fairly bright. It reaches opposition on the 14th of July. I think that's rubbish. I shouldn't have put that in there. I shouldn't have left that in. I think it actually reaches opposition next month. So ignore that little comment down the bottom of your screen, please. Yeah, I think it's Saturn that's coming into opposition on the 2nd of August, and then Jupiter is in opposition later on in August. So yeah, I've put two pictures on here. So the 5th of July, which is tomorrow night from when this is being recorded, or the early hours of tomorrow morning actually, shall I say. Jupiter is over to the left of Saturn, and then on the 26th of July, about 3 in the morning, or as soon as you see it rising, you should have the moon will be hanging just below Jupiter, and then over to the right will be Saturn again. And I think there's also a few events happening this month because Jupiter is so close to opposition and its equinox. It's a good time of the year to see plenty of shadow transit, moon transits, and even mutual events between the Galilean moons as well. I've highlighted two events here. The first one is on 25th of July, and it is Ganymede shadow transit. So about 4 in the morning you should be able to see the shadow of Ganymede making its way across Jupiter's disk. And on the 21st of July, about 1:30 in the morning, you should be able to see Io and its shadow as well making its way across Jupiter's disk. Now I've picked these out from Stellarium Planetarium software. So if you just go on there, you're going to have a clear morning, you're going to be out with your scope, check out Jupiter, zoom right into it, get it centered, and then just click through the time or the dates or whatever you want to do. You can set it to whatever time and date you like, whenever you're going to be out there, and see if a transit is going to be happening, because as you flick through the times of the days, you can often see a little shadow pop there on the gas giant's disk, so you'll know you'll be in with a chance of seeing one of these events. Okay, moving on now to Saturn. Like I mentioned before, it's over to the right of Jupiter, so it rises before Jupiter does, but it is quite a bit dimmer. Beginning of the month it's mag 0.4, it does increase to mag 0.2 by the end of the month, but it's still quite a bit dimmer. But you can still make out its rings very well with a telescope or a pair of binoculars. Or you need quite a powerful pair of binoculars if you want to see its rings. And it reaches opposition on the 2nd of August, and there's a thing called I think it's the Seeliger effect, where the rings do brighten quite noticeably. I think a week either side of opposition, so well worth observing, having a look at the rings of Saturn around about that sort of time. And this slide here, I put the 25th of July. You'll have the moon just down and to the left a bit of Saturn, and then the next night it will be hanging underneath Jupiter. There we go, that's an image of Saturn I took a few years ago. See its rings there, and you see the Cassini division between two main rings of Saturn, and you see a bit of banding there as well on the planet's surface, or the gas surface. There we have it. A couple of deep sky objects I'll highlight this month. First one is the Iris Nebula, NGC 7023. It's a mag 7 reflection nebula, I think this one is. It's in the constellation of Cepheus, the quite recognisable house asterism up there, not far away from Ursa Minor. And you can see there the sort of the location where it is on these little sky charts I've just cropped off of Stellarium Planetarium software here. So as you're looking at the house asterism, to the right hand side if the house was upright, and it kind of makes almost a right angled triangle with those two stars there on the right hand side. Yeah, so your best bet of getting some decent coordinates for it is to use planetarium software, or make yourself a little star hopping guide to get there if you've got a manual scope. And move on now. That's an image I took of the Iris Nebula, quite a few years ago now. I think I did that one. It's about time I revisited, I think. I think there's a lot more nebulosity you can bring out around here, but as you can see, it's being illuminated there by a bright star. It's quite a pleasing sight. And the next object isn't a deep sky object, but it's actually a double star Alberio. It's the second double star I ever observed myself, but it's an easy one to spot in the summer, and it's a nice object to see through a telescope as well. And if you're showing people a double star for the first time, it gives a nice wow factor because of the contrasting colours between the two stars. You've got a red star and a blue star side by side, and I think it is called a double star. Now, I think recently, a few years ago, it was found that they're more of a line of sight double star rather than actually gravitationally bound to each other. So they just happen to be in the same area of sky, but one is a lot further away than the other one is. And here's an image I took through my telescope. You can see they're quite a bright pair of stars. One's red, one's blue. Through the eyepiece, they really do make a nice sight. So I'll just go back to this chart again, just to show you. You can see where Vega, Altair, and Deneb, the three bright stars of those three constellations there, make up the summer triangle. And to locate Alberio is quite easy, really, because you just go to the centre of the summer triangle, just off centre. You'll see a fairly, it's a dimmer star than those three I've just highlighted, but you definitely see that star sitting there in the middle, and that is Alberio. So it's naked eye visibility star, and then when you get a telescope on it, you'll see something like this. So it's a really nice object to view. Another event happening this month is the Lunar XMV Clair Obscura effect on the Moon's terminator. This is happening on the 16th of July. So if you observe from about 9:30 to 10 o'clock down the Moon's terminator, you should be able to make out the X and V, as you can see on my couple of images here. It's probably a bit easier for you to see on the right hand image. It's just the way that the sunlight casts shadows over the craters of this region of the Moon at a certain time of the month, and if it happens to be visible in the sky at that particular time, then you can make out the lunar X and V. I think it's only visible for a few hours, or if that, every month. So if it does happen to be in the sky and visible, then it is a nice effect to observe. So there we go, and if you get an image of it, even more the better. And we're also still in the midst of noctilucent cloud season, so they're not very predictable. So if you have a clear sky, low horizon, about 1.5 to 2 hours after sunset or before sunrise, it's worth looking to the northern sky to see if you can see these elusive clouds. I think this is a time lapse that Titch Wykes made last year, I believe. It shows the dynamic structure. This is only over it'll be a matter of half an hour or 45 minutes. So it's sped up, obviously, but they do change noticeably over time. If you're lucky enough to observe them, you do need quite a low horizon to see them. They're caused by ice crystals very high up in the atmosphere, and as the sun is below the horizon, the sunlight's shining up at just the right angle to illuminate these ice crystals back down to wherever you're standing, the observer, and they appear to glow like this. And I think actually these ice crystals are supposed to form around dusty particles of meteorites that have hit the atmosphere. So yeah, really cool thing to observe. And I think this is another time lapse from Titch as well. Before the clouds rolled in, of course. Beautiful stuff. Okay, the ISS is visible all throughout July as well. I've been through heavensabove.com, clicked on the ISS section, and yeah, you can see dates for just about every day this month. Most of the passes are in the early hours, some of them are in the late evening, you know, from between 10 and 11ish. But just have a look on there, or there's an app for your phone, the ISS detector app as usual, have a look at that as well. And you can see the ISS passing over for yourself. I think the one I've highlighted here is a pretty good pass, maximum altitude of about 69 degrees, so almost overhead directly. And this one is on the 7th of July, so a couple of days from now, and this will be, it's about 23 minutes past 3 in the morning. So yeah, if you're up at that time in the morning and you've got your little app, it'll give you a little notification of something's going to happen, the ISS is coming over. So there we go, you can give the astronauts a little wave as they make their way over your location. Yeah, it's usually always a nice thing to see. And moving on now to some images that we took last month, and they are all of the partial solar eclipse. I think that's all that happened last month. And I think many people did any deep sky imaging last month, so we've just got a bunch of partial solar eclipse images for you, which happened on the 10th of June last month. So this is my offering. I used the Hydrogen Alpha telescope to observe this event, and luckily we got a few fleeting views through the cloud that was coming and going and throughout the event, and this one was just about at maximum, which was around about 10 past to quarter past 11. I was pretty pleased with this one. I managed to bring out some a few little solar prominences on the edge of the sun there as well. And there's a couple of little active regions going on as well on the sun's surface, but there you go, you can see that shadow across the top is the moon passing in front of the sun. About 22% coverage I think it was from my location here in the UK. And moving on now, here's Graham Algio's time lapse. You can see the clouds moving in there in his white light images. Yeah, and he made a time lapse of the data that he did capture. It's a pretty cool time lapse still. But you can see how difficult it is when you're up against the clouds, as is always usually the problem here in the UK. But we did get quite lucky with some views. Here's one from John Allen. I think he offered his camera phone up to his telescope to get an image of this one. Yeah, another cool white light image there. And as with Paul Smith as well, he was using Barda solar film on his telescope and his I think long camera lens as well to get some white light images of the partial solar eclipse. And here's some images from Titch Wykes to finish off with. He is using Hydrogen Alpha scope, which is the top set of images, and he also using a calcium K telescope as well. Both scopes dedicated for looking at the sun, but in different wavelengths and looking at different layers of the solar atmosphere. So yeah, you can clearly see the active regions there in the calcium K at the bottom, and also on the top you can just about make out those same active regions there as well. So yeah, everyone had a few glimpses of the partial solar eclipse last month, and yeah, I'm glad we didn't totally miss the event. It wasn't a total cloud out for us here. I think some parts of the UK were totally clouded out, but yeah, quite a lot of people did get to see it still. I sent my young daughter into school with some solar glasses, and she was sharing some views with her friends at school in the playground, which was really cool. So hopefully they've enjoyed that. It might even inspire some future astronomers going forward. So that's it for now for this month. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope you find some of it useful. and hopefully I shall see you down at the village hall next month. So yeah, goodbye for now, and clear skies to you all.